Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a special holiday edition of Live from the Parlor. Tonight's Thanksgiving show is pre-recorded, but don't worry, tonight's broadcast is chock full of great music, not only from yours truly, but you'll also hear from the Tolentino Band, as well as the Singapore Slingers Orchestra. We've got a great show for you tonight, so let's head down to the parlor, and as they say, on with the show.
Sweethearts forever, forever and ever. We may grow old, dear, but love like ours will not grow cold, dear. We will remember in May or December. We're sweethearts forever, forever and ever, dear.
Yeah, the megaphone. In 1928, this is a tune called Get Out and Get Under the Moon. This is a song that's so popular on the Live from the Parlor shows, I've had to kind of reinvent it a couple of times, even going so far as to learn it and sing it in Japanese one time. The composers are Chicago-born Larry Shea, who is most popular today and best known for his work When You're Smiling, as well as William Jerome and Charlie Tobias, two other titans of the songwriting industry. So let's take it away. Here we go. Get Out and Get Under the Moon. What do you do in the evening when you don't know what to do? Play a game, read a book, but every night feels just the same. But what would you do if I told you how to keep from feeling blue? Well, my advice is good to take and it's easy enough to do. When you're all alone in the old night and you're feeling out of tune, pick up your hat, close up your flat, get out and get under the moon. Underneath the bright, silvery light, you'll be feeling better soon. Pick up your hat, close up your flat, get out and get under the moon. Look, look, look at the stars above, look, look, look at the sweetest love. Oh boy, give me a night in June. I mean it, all you gotta do any old night when you're feeling out of tune. Pick up your hat, close up your flat, get out and get under the moon. When you're all alone any old night and you're feeling out of tune, pick up your hat, close up your flat, get out and get under the moon. Underneath the bright, silvery light, you'll be feeling better soon. Pick up your hat, close up your flat, get out and get under the moon. Look, look, look at the stars above, look, look, look at the sweetest love. Oh boy, give me a night in June. I mean it, all you gotta do any old night when you're feeling out of tune. Pick up your hat, close up your flat, get out and get under the moon. Get out, get under the moon. That's all. Well, there we go from 1928, one of my favorite pop tunes, and I know it's a favorite of a lot of you out there as well, and television lant, as Stan Freberg would say. Yeah, I first heard Get Out and Get Under the Moon on a Columbia record of the great Paul Whiteman Orchestra, featuring Bix Beiderbecke. Hey, doesn't get much better than that, right? And speaking of things that doesn't get much better than, let's talk about the great music of Isham Jones. He was a wonderful composer who wrote I'll See You in My Dreams, It Had to Be You, and a ton of other great songs you've probably heard, but maybe didn't know Isham Jones wrote. Yeah, Isham is a pretty interesting character. He was born here in Ohio in a little town called Colton. That's right, little tiny coal town, appropriately named. And he would write these songs, he would go in the studio and record them with his band, and then they would go out and they would play gigs, and they would make little short films. It's amazing what you can do when you don't sleep, I guess. My great friend and pal Joseph Rubin, fabulous conductor and leader of bands, he put together an Isham Jones tribute show aptly called I'll See You in My Dreams, and we got to do that show twice in a couple of different towns. One of them was not too far from Colton, so how about that? So thanks for bringing me on for that, Joseph, getting to play guitar and banjo and sing and do the thing. So we're going to play an Isham Jones tune for you now, one that I first heard on one of his records that I have in my collection, but also I got to do it at that show, and I loved it so much. I said, Joseph, please give me a copy of that arrangement. He said, sure. Emailed it because by this time I was living here in Ohio, but I still had my great Singapore Slingers band down in Dallas. So I knew I wanted to play it the next time I got down there, so I sent in the PDF and said, hey guys, work this up. I want to do it. I want to do it. So speaking of the Singapore Slingers, what say we bring them up right now? This is their performance with me at the helm of One Little Word Led to Another. Hope you like it. This is from one of our fabulous New Year's shows that I'm sad to miss this year, but I know that tomorrow is another day. So here we go from New Year's Eve 2018 at the Kessler Theater in Dallas, Texas, the Singapore Slingers playing One Little Word Led to Another.
talking about the weather. One little word led to another. I knew right away what I'd like to say to you. And then we talked a little longer. And all the while my love grew stronger. One little word led to another. The light in my eyes was putting you wise, I knew. We kept saying the same thing over, and every time it sounded new. I kept thinking when you'd be thinking if I should steal a kiss or two. And when we walked beneath the moonlight, and while we talked beneath the moonlight, one little word led to another. And what can I do but say I'm in love with you?
There we go, live from one of our New Year's shows. That's a great Isham Jones tune. One little word led to another. Well, if you can count, you probably noticed there weren't exactly 17 people up there. That's because it's New Year's, and New Year's is kind of a tough night. You know, well, it's tough as far as getting 17 musicians in one place. Sometimes other guys have other gigs. And, well, we didn't have the flute and the clarinet in that video, so what can you say? I guess we struggled through it, right? Well, there we go. Great Isham Jones tune called One Little Word Led to Another. Well, as an accordion player, I only really have one regret in my life, and that's that I didn't make it out to California in time to meet Ian Whitcomb before he passed away earlier this year. He was a titan of the music world. He was known in vintage dance worlds, known in the jazz world, known as a music historian, even known in the rock and roll world, because that's how he first got his start. So Ian Whitcomb, of course, brought so many great songs back to life and recorded so many CDs with his lovely wife Regina and his great band the Bungalow Boys. So I am glad that at least I have, and we all have, that to remember him by. Now see, Ian Whitcomb, of course, as you probably know, was English. So not only was he familiar with great American popular music, but he was also well steeped in the great English music hall tradition as well. And that's exactly what I have coming up for you from 1918 right now. So we're going to dive into the ragtime era for you now. That's right, we're going to go a little bit further back in time. And also, I'm going to bring you another Singapore Slinger show. The orchestra's not playing because I haven't got off my duff to write an arrangement yet. But sometimes as a chop break so that they can, you know, relax and we can still keep the show going, sometimes we'll do either a band within a band, or we'd feature our pianist on something, or push comes to shove, I'll pick up the accordion and play a tune solo. And they can stretch and relax, get a drink, whatever they want to do. And it keeps the show going too. So that's exactly what this next tune is. A little British music hall tune that, again, I first heard from Ian Whitcomb, one of the greatest novelty tunes in my repertoire at least, here's a song called I Wish I Was Tarzan.
Wifey left Jonesy boy on Christmas Eve to amuse the children just as he could. They gathered round him whilst he read a book of the heroes, also great and good. One said, now, Daddy dear, please tell me do, just what kind of hero you would like to be. He called up his wife at her holiday camp and said, this is what would just suit me. Oh, I wish I were Tarzan, that wonderful man, Tarzan of the apes. I'm just crazy about that dear simple life, roaming round the jungle far away from my wife. Oh, I take what I wanted and get what I please. There'd be lots of lovely spongy things to squeeze. They say you're near to heaven when you live in Tennessee, but I'd be nearer heaven living in a great big tree. Oh, I wish I were Tarzan, that wonderful man, Tarzan of the apes. No housing plans, no 6% would be needed for that old home of mine. No keys or keyholes to find in the dark when I am full of banana wine. Every night off I would go to my club down by the old river Nile. My taxi would be a big elephant and he wouldn't charge a nickel a mile. Oh, I wish I were Tarzan, that wonderful man, Tarzan of the apes. I'm just crazy about that simple life, roaming round the jungle far away from my wife. Oh, I take what I wanted and get what I please. There'd be lots of lovely spongy things to squeeze. There'd be no tailor's bills to keep on paying all the while, for all I'd ever wear would be a Pentecostal smile. Oh, I wish I were Tarzan, that wonderful man, Tarzan of the apes. Hey.
Well, there we go, from 1918, from just a little bit past the ragtime era, 1 year to be exact, 1918, that's a tune called I Wish I Was Tarzan. That's right, from the British Music Hall stage and brought to my attention by the great Ian Whitcomb on one of his CDs. So, speaking of Ian and British Music Hall, let's do a tune that was made famous, at least around these parts, made famous by the great British crooner Al Bowley. I love Al Bowley, you love Al Bowley, so let's do some Al Bowley. What do you say? This is a American pop tune, but it was popular on both sides of the pond, and he recorded it with Ray Noble, and he also recorded it with Roy Fox, which is where my arrangement comes from. And I first heard this tune in a great Finch film, Amelie, so it's kind of interesting how these tunes first come to us. So like I was saying, Al Bowley, even though he was a British crooner, he was actually born in Mozambique in 1898 to Lebanese and Greek extraction. How about that? So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get on with it. Here is Al Bowley's 1931, as sung by me, rendition of the great pop tune, Guilty. Is it a crime, loving you dear like I do? If it's a crime, then I'm guilty, guilty of loving you. Maybe I'm wrong, dreaming of you, dreaming the lonely night through. If it's a crime, then I'm guilty, guilty of dreaming of you. What can I do? What can I say after I've taken the blame? You say all through, you go your way, but I'll always feel just the same. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, loving you dear like I do. If it's a crime, then I'm guilty, guilty of loving you. There we go, from 1931, a Great Depression era tune called Guilty. Again, as Ian Whitcomb would say, 1931, it was a bad year for America, but a good year for music. Because what can I say? A lot of those great tunes helped get us through those dark depression years, especially 1931, 32, 33. Those are hard years, but they made some great music, and, well, here we are today. So let's move along. Let's get back into the happy 1920s, the joyous 1920s, when there was a chicken in every pot, and Coolidge was in power, and all was right with the world, for the most part. Well, 1928, I'm going to do another 1928 tune, and another moon tune on top of that. Because in the 1920s, the songwriters had this great preoccupation with the moon. Because, face it, you could get a lot of mileage out of moon, and croon, and June, and spoon, and so on. In fact, there's a British pop tune called How Many Rhymes Can You Get? Sung by Sam Brown and Elsie Carlisle, where they talk about that very thing. But I digress. This tune here is 1928, written by a composer who actually was born in Italy before he came to America, James Jimmy Monaco. He wrote this one in 1928, and it was recorded by a lot of bands, and sung by a lot of guys too, including one of my personal favorite vocalists, Mr. Irving Kaufman. Yeah, let's make some noise for Irving Kaufman, that's right. Well, this was recorded in 2018 with my 5-piece band, the Matt Tolentino Band, and that's what you're going to hear right now. So here we are, of all places, at Billy Bob's, Texas, in Fort Worth. That's right, the Billy Bob's. Lionel Lovett wasn't there that night, but we were there. And who were we? We're Thiago Nascimento on keys, Irwin Arnstein on tuba, Scott Whitfield, the great Scott Whitfield, on tenor banjo, and my dear friend Mike Plotkin on the drums. So here's a 1928 spoony, croony, Juny, moony tune for you called Me and the Man in the Moon.
to them prove there's two lonesome people in the whole wide world. That's me and the man in the moon. Just before I'm counting sheep, through my window he comes to peep, and with each other sympathising, looking at the happy sweethearts while they sit around and spoon. There's two lonesome people in the whole wide world. That's me and the man in the moon.
There we go, from 1928, pop tune called Me and the Man in the Moon. Could you hear a little Irving Kaufman influence in that vocal? I sure hope so, because Irving's one of my absolute favorite vocalists of the jazz era, and a little bit beyond too. Along with Bing Crosby, Smith Ballou, and of course the great Al Boley. Hey, you can't go wrong. Well, that was 1928. Let's move ahead 1 year to 1929 to a show that was part of a production called John Murray Anderson's Almanac. John Murray Anderson was known for putting shows together, big production shows. In fact, he worked to help bring the King of Jazz film to life, the great Paul Whiteman showboat film. So this is a tune, like I said, John Murray Anderson. I'll never forget the time I was on stage and I accidentally introduced him as F. Murray Abraham. Didn't get to live that one down for a while. So anyway, from the Almanac, which has a beautiful sheet music cover, it's blue and it has these three ladies on it, and it says on their skirts, it says, yesterday, today, tomorrow. Here we go, one of my favorite tunes of all time, and one you still hear from time to time. It's a great pop tune, I hope you like it, called I May Be Wrong, But I Think You're Wonderful. I may be wrong, but I think you're wonderful. I may be wrong, but I think you're swell. I like your style, say, I think it's marvelous, but I'm always wrong, so how can I tell? All of my shirts are unsightly, all of my ties are a crime, but if, dear, and you I picked rightly, it's the very first time you came along to say, I think you're wonderful, I think you're grand, but I may be wrong. go, from 1929, from John Murray Anderson's Almanac, a great pop tune. I love that tune. Basically, the Bob Herring stock arrangement from 1929 of I May Be Wrong, But I Think You're Wonderful. Hope you liked it. Well, like I said, that was 1929, so we're going to hop back into the Depression era a few years, 1932. Because like I said, they had beautiful ballads like Guilty, but they also had fun novelty tunes too. Because after all, when it's the Great Depression, you gotta find time to laugh. So that's what this tune always does. It's fun to dance to, it's fun to listen to, it's fun to play, and it's a great tune. Actually, we're gonna bring the Singapore Slingers back up for this one. Now this is neat because you're gonna kind of see the song two different ways. First, you're gonna see it inside this big old church. And we're all kind of spread out and we're wearing whatever, and cases are strewn about. I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt. Why, you ask? That's because we were recording it. That's right. This tune shows up on our new CD that I hope you will order, available on Rivermont Records. It's called Light My Way to Love is the CD, but the tune I'm talking about is called I Played Fiddle for the Tsar. That's right. And this was recorded on Crown by the Dick Robertson Orchestra. He was another great vocalist of the early 1930s, and he recorded this in 1932 with his band. And I heard it, guy Matt Orwatt brought this to my attention and said, "You've got to hear this." And I said, "Hell, I've got to play this." So I found the stock, thanks to Vince Giordano. He had it. He even asked me, he hadn't played it. He said, "Is it any good?" And I said, "It's fantastic." So first you're going to hear us recording it, and a snippet at least, and then you're going to hear it performed live. So let's hear us in the studio, if you will. Here is I Played Fiddle for the Tsar. Pretty neat, huh? But let's hear it now with an audience, and check out these dancers too.
No other days were greater. In those days it used to be, I was known as a marquis. What's a marquis over here? A sign on a theater. I was once a member of the court. Now I'm just me. Now I'm just a member of the court. When someone wants to sue me, that's why I sigh and cry. You look at me, you never think that I play fiddle for the Tsar. When he'd say, play something hutski, I would play a hutkazutsky. I play fiddle for the Tsar. I was hype up near and far. When he would feel romantic and the sky was blue above, he would call the queen in and started making love. I was there, yes I was there with wine and caviar, playing second fiddle to the Tsar.
two takes on one great song. For 1932, that's I Played Fiddle for the Tsar, written, believe it or not, by Matt Gordon and Harry Revel. That's right, the same guys that wrote beautiful tunes like Did You Ever See a Dream Walking? Well, they wrote stuff like that too. And frankly, I wish they'd written more like that. So there it is, I Played Fiddle for the Tsar, which you can also find on our Rivermont record, available at matttolentino.com or rivermontrecords.com. Hey, Christmas is coming, so order some CDs.
My baby don't care for shows, my baby don't care for clothes, my baby just cares for me. My baby don't care for furs and laces, my baby don't care for high-tone places, my baby don't care for rings or other expensive things, she's sensible as can be. My baby don't care who knows it, my baby just cares for me. I'm so happy since the day that I fell in love in a great big way, and the big surprise is someone loves me too. Guess it's hard for you to see just what anyone can see in me, but it simply goes to prove what love can do.
For this next piece, I'm going to offer a bit of sparkling French musette for your listening pleasure. Musette is that delightful sidewalk cafe music that we associate with Paris, and its father has long been considered to be the great Émile Vacher, born in Tours on May 7, 1883. He's considered to be the father of the bal musette genre, and he rose to fame in the 1920s and 1930s on great records with his trio and his quartet. Unfortunately, by the time he died in 1969, at the age of 85, he was largely forgotten, so planted by more modern players such as Gus Viseur and Tony Morena. Nevertheless, he stands as the towering forefather of the great musette genre. Here's his 1931 piece, Mado. There's a wonderful recording of that, of the original 78, you can find on YouTube, and it shows exactly the way he played in that lively musette style. In fact, I love that recording so much that when I bought that accordion, I said to my tech, hey, tune it that way. And I gave him an MP3 of that recording and I said, tune it just like Emile Vachet's. I think we came pretty close. What do you think? The accordion, for the record, is a 1937 General accordion. That is the Flowtone model. And if you notice, the keyboard is not exactly the status quo. That's sort of one of the things they were trying to do to reinvent the accordion at that time period. You would find keyboards that curved like that. One company even tried producing accordion with a small piano keyboard on the left hand. It doesn't quite work. It's sort of like playing a piano like this. Not very ergonomically friendly. But the Flowtone is actually surprisingly easy. And I do love that accordion, and I love that heavy French musette that I put on it. Well, let's leave Paris for the time being. We'll come back, don't you worry. Let's leave Paris and let's head back to London. Let's go to London and play a tune written by the great Ray Noble. That's right, Ray Noble, who often employed Al Bowlly as his vocalist. And Ray Noble actually said that when he would write tunes, he often would hear Al's voice singing them in his head. And that way, when it came time to record them, it seemed a perfect match. And I think he's right. So I'm going to bring up my band again, the Matt Tolentino Band. Here we are in our tuxedos. This is from another New Year's show, 2017, I believe. And this is us performing the great Ray Noble Al Bowlly piece. He didn't write it, but it sure belongs to Bowlly. Here is The Very Thought of You.
The very thought of you, and I forget to do the little ordinary things that everyone ought to do. I'm living in a kind of daydream. I'm happy as a king and foolish though it may seem. Honey, to me, that's everything. The mere idea of you, the longing here for you. You'll never know how slow the moments go till I'm near to you. I see your face in every flower, and your eyes and stars above. It's just the thought of you, the very thought of you, my love. for you. You'll never know how slow the moments go till I'm near to you. I see your face in every flower, and your eyes in stars above. It's just the thought of you, the very thought of you. It's just the thought of you, the very thought of you. It's just the thought of you, the very thought of you, my love. Ah, thank you, dancers. Thank you so much. Yeah.
What a band, what a band. What can I say? That's Thiago Nascimento on keys, David Loverian on tenor saxophone, had Mark Wilson playing bass, Jay Mayernick on drums, and I'm Matt Tolentino, that guy up front with the stick, singing. Well, we're going to move along here, and let's go back to the 19-teens, back to that short little post-ragtime era, back to 1918 again for you here. This is a tune, I love playing it solo, I love playing the band arrangement, and I love playing small pared-down versions of it too. Any way you slice it, it's a great tune. This is called Smiles.
2, I want 2.
There you go, a fun tune from 1918 called Smiles. That was Charlie Horowitz on bass, George Gagliardi on guitar, and Michael Plotkin on drums. And how about those dancers too? Among those dancers are my friend Chris and Anna Holm. They live in Sweden now. Actually, they did live in Sweden before. They came to Dallas for about 2 years for work, and I was fortunate to get to meet them and bring them into my life. He's a fabulous banjo and guitar player, and she's a great violinist and singer. And they're all around wonderful human beings too. So Chris and Anna, there's your plug. So if you're fortunate to be in Stockholm, or if you're going to go to Sweden, hey, maybe you can track them down and hear him play some banjo and hear her sing a little bit for you. And she yodels too. You couldn't tell that from the video, so I wanted to make sure to mention it. I know you've all been waiting with bated breath to find out What is Matt's favorite pop tune of the 1920s? Written by Eugene Ford in 1927. It's a tune called Rain. Yes, the great Eugene Ford wrote this tune. He later went on to a career being music director for Jackie Gleason, later when he had his television show. But this is a little bit before that. This is before anyone knew who Ralph Cramden was. And like I said, I've played it with the bands, I've played it with the full arrangement, with the orchestra, I played it with small combos, and I play it all the time as a solo on a lot of my gigs, whether I'm on a piano or accordion, singing it. I do love this tune. Here we go with Rain. April showers overhead offer me a chance to protect her from the rain and cultivate romance. It's an opportunity, something to enjoy. Helter skelter, fly for shelter, I'm a lucky boy. Rain, let us cuddle all the rain. Pitter-patters on the pane, and we're alone. A chance to while away a dreamy afternoon, a lovely peaceful afternoon. No one can see us. Rain, gee, it's cozy in the rain. There's no reason to complain. She'll wait for you to hold her hand, and then it's 10 to 1, you'll kiss her in the rain. Rain, rain, rain. There you go, from 1927, my favorite pop tune of the whole 1920s, the whole jazz age. That is called Rain, written by Eugene Ford. And a song that was very popular in Japan, too, of all places. I suppose because the Japanese and their culture can appreciate a song with such smooth, clean lines. That's what Brian Wright would point out. So there you have it. And I based my little performance there off of the Frank Skinner stock arrangement. That's right, Frank Skinner, the man who literally wrote the book on hot dance band arranging. He wrote an insane amount of arrangements in the 1920s. I've heard it said that he wrote arrangements for 1/3 of all the music that came out of Broadway and Tin Pan Alley, writing stock arrangements for bands to play, so that someone didn't have to do the work. Somebody was spared the work of sitting down and writing a chart for the band, when they could just go to the music store, pay 75 cents, and you'd come back with a Frank Skinner arrangement for your band to play. And the odds are good it was probably pretty good, because Frank Skinner's, he's the guy. He's the guy, what can I say? We actually, the Singapore Slingers, our second CD, is called the Frank Skinner Project, and it's all Frank Skinner arrangements recorded just about note per note. We put a few solos in here and there, but mostly we wanted to show off just how good Frank's arrangements really are. So in addition to the Light My Way to Love CD, if you go to matttolentino.com/buy CDs, you can, or just go to my website, matttolentino.com, and you'll find it right there. Hopefully along the way to finding some other cool stuff too, pictures and videos and things like that. So Mr. Frank Skinner, we owe you. So speaking of music, you've probably noticed some of these tunes on my piano, and what do they all have in common? What do they all have in common? Well, they are all filed under the Oriental Foxtrot category. That's right, Oriental Foxtrot, you say? That's right, Oriental Foxtrot. See, in 1917, that's the year when ragtime officially parts this mortal coil on paper, because two things happen. Scott Joplin dies, that's pretty big, and the original Dixieland Jazz, J-A-S-S, band records the first jazz record. So those two things kind of signal the end of the ragtime era and the beginning of jazz. Of course, ragtime had reigned for so many years, decades, that it wasn't gone overnight. It hung around, and I mean, it was a strong music form. It was the march form. And so they came up with things including ragged jazz, which is a sort of fun time period between the late teens, early 20s, when they're transitioning, figuring out how to go from the real staid structure of ragtime into the more frenzied ad hoc nature of jazz. And one of the things that came up along the way was the Oriental Foxtrot, Sheik of Araby, Lena from Palestina, and of course these great tunes, Hindustan, Persian Rug, and Under the Mellow Arabian Moon, written by, this one by Neil Moray, which was a pen name actually for Charles N. Daniels. And if you watch the West Coast Ragtime Festival online show, you may have caught Jeff Barnhart, where he was talking about Neil Moray. Whenever he would use the name Neil Moray, he wanted tunes to have sort of a more art song to them. So tunes like Chloe, things like that, those are the products of Neil Moray. So I'm talking about Oriental Foxtrots. All these guys were writing them. Eventually, Isham Jones, who I talked about earlier, he couldn't resist. He couldn't resist. So this is an Isham Jones tune, and another one that I first got to play live with Joseph Rubin last year on the Isham Jones show. Here's a great tune called Shanghai Lullaby, once again featuring the Singapore Slingers. Enjoy. time to change the pace a little bit and play a march, but not just any march, an Italian march. Written by Gerardo Metallo, born in Calabrito, Italy, he later moved to and spent his whole life in Uruguay. This is a march that became very popular with accordionists, thanks in a large part to the dueling accordion brothers Pietro and Guido Diro. This is called the Sharp Shooters March. There you go, the Sharpshooters March, recorded by both Guido and Pietro Diro on their different record labels. In fact, Guido Diro, there's a great Vitaphone short you can see on YouTube. You can see just his great mastery at work, in the flesh. How about that? And another fun fact about Guido Diro, he was married to Mae West for a while, but still. Well, I've played a lot of music tonight, but one thing I've left out is a polka, and we can't do that. What Thanksgiving would be complete without a polka? So here's a tune written by the great Dick Richard Metco, great accordionist, great old-time accordion player from the Midwest back in the 30s, 40s, 50s. And this is a tune that he wrote, and I first heard on my great dear friend Robert Atwood's CD called This Old Accordion. This is a wonderful, wonderful, lively tune. So again, put those dancing shoes on, work off some turkey, don't fall asleep. Work off some turkey, and here's a great tune called Dick's Polka. Parisian tune for you here. Here's sort of a pop tune in France of the era, 1929, 1930. I actually don't recall the exact date, but it was a beautiful, popular tune back then, and a waltz. So this was recorded by a woman named Frehel. She was sort of a forerunner to Edith Piaf. I first heard this in Amélie, the great French film Amélie. I hope you enjoyed it. It's called Si tu n'étais pas là. There we go, Si tu n'étais pas là, which I think basically means if you weren't here with me. I took 2 years of French 1, don't remember any of it. Well, it's time for the last tune. I do hope that you guys have enjoyed it. I've certainly enjoyed putting on this show and bringing the orchestra out for a little bit, and the Matt Tolentino band too. I do hope that you enjoyed the solo accordion. I tried to capture a little bit of everything that people usually request on the Thursday night shows. And again, this was pre-recorded, and I'll be back in the saddle next Thursday, so don't you worry. I'm going to do a great tune now to kind of close things out. We're going to go back to the 19-teens. This was written by a very young Richard Whiting, who was still a budding composer at that era. Actually, the same guy who wrote Guilty, which we heard earlier in the program. Whiting was a staff composer at the Jerome Remick Company, and they were engaged in a songwriting competition with all the different staff composers, and he was toiling in his office one day trying to get the tune that he said, if I can just get a great tune. But he had no luck, or so he thought. And so he took what he had and he threw it in the trash, threw it in the wastebasket, grabbed his coat and his hat, and left for the day. And later, when it came time to kind of clean up, his secretary came in there, and well, she didn't rip it, but she came in there and she pulled it out of the wastebasket and she looked at it, and they had a piano in there, and she went, hey, not bad. She took this to Jerome Remick himself, knocked on his door, and said, Mr. Remick, Mr. Whiting threw this in the trash. I think it's pretty good. What do you think? And she played it for him, and he said, well, any tune that Mr. Remick thinks is good must be good. What is it called? And she said, well, you know, it's a beautiful tune, but it really doesn't have a title. It just has some scribbling at the top. It just says Auf Wiedersehen. And what does that mean? And he says, well, more or less it means till we meet again. Well, there's a song in the land of the lily each sweetheart has heard with a sigh. Over high garden walls this sweet echo falls as a soldier boy whispers goodbye. Smile the while you kiss me sad adieu, till the clouds roll by I come to you. Then those skies will seem more blue down in Lover's Lane, my dearie. Wedding bells will ring so merrily, every tear will be a memory. So wait and pray each night for me till we meet again. Smile the while you kiss me sad adieu, till those clouds roll by I come to you. Then the skies will seem more blue down in Lover's Lane, my dearie. Wedding bells will ring so merrily, every tear will be a memory. So wait and pray each night for me till we meet again. Well, thank you so much for watching my little program here. I want to thank you for sticking around and watching, and I hope I played some of your favorite tunes. I sure hope you enjoyed the orchestra, and I hope you enjoyed the Matt Tolentino band as well. I had fun cobbling this little show together, and I learned a thing or two about editing too. So maybe I'll do a Christmas show. Who knows? But anyway, thanks so much for watching. If you do appreciate this great music I am playing, whoop, you can donate here, right side up. You can catch me right here. You can catch me there. It is Matt Tolentino. That's me. And if you wish to throw up a few drachmas in the pot, you may find me at paypal.me/Matt Tolentino. Or if you're young and hip, you can, like I'm not, you can use Venmo, Matt-Tolentino-1. So thank you so much, and I sure appreciate it. And sincerely, I do hope you've had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and whether you spent it with just your immediate family, whether you pulled up the whole family on Zoom and gathered around the computer just like the Pilgrims did, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I could bring a little merriment and add a little soundtrack to your evening. So until next time, good night and good luck.